Hi, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Today I'm going to be working on a Penn Surfmaster 200. This is a beautiful reel, kind of resembles the Penn Squidder, except that the bearings are different in this case. And otherwise, this is a low or smaller diameter frame. It is perfect for surf casting with a long rod, and well, they have the etched side plate here with that fisherman from surf kind of casting out. It's a beautiful reel. This one came into the shop for service, and while I've done some Surfmasters in the past, I thought, well, it's probably been some time, so why don't I just refresh and see what we can do with this one. It's in pretty good shape. It's got some tarnish or film on it, but otherwise seems to be working okay. So we're going to show you how to take this reel apart, how to service it, how to keep it fishing for a long time to come. If you like these types of videos, please subscribe, and if you do subscribe, please use that notification button. That'll let you know when I'm posting. Well, the Surfmaster has a unique feature, just like the Jig Masters. The Surfmaster has a single take-apart screw. You unscrew it to about there. You'll feel it disconnect from the inner case. Then you pull out just a little bit, and keeping pressure on pulling out, you just do a short turn counterclockwise. That will release the side plate. This one has the metal spool. These came in two varieties. They came with a metal spool and a plastic spool. And the plastic spool, the idea with that plastic spool was that it had less drag when you were casting, so you could throw the line further. It wasn't, some folks always want to suggest that it was a cheap method to provide some cost relief to the reel. And while the reels with the plastic spools were a little bit less expensive, that wasn't the primary cause of the insertion of those plastic spools. The idea there again was to enable us to cast very far. I'm using a very fine steel wool. It's called 0000, and it's a buffing or a polishing type of a steel wool. So I want to take what little tarnish there is on that inner spool and clean that up. There's still a little bit remaining there, and I'm using a chrome polish. It's an automotive chrome polish. It's turtle waxes, and interestingly enough, they still sell that polish, even though there's limited automobiles out there that actually have chrome on them any longer. So let me just use a little bit more, get on the inside of this, and then buff up that reel seat. Inner cross posts. This is your opportunity to clean the reel while the spool is out and the side plate is off. That gives you the best in terms of reach to clean up the pieces. When you do a reel service, you want to focus on a couple of things. One of them is cleaning it, of course. Most of the time the cleaning mechanically is really about the old dried greases and oils and things like that. But in this case, we have a little bit of tarnish on there, so it doesn't hurt to take that off as well. You want to inspect as you're cleaning. Take a look, make sure all the pieces and parts are in good working order. You want to replace those that may be damaged or worn. So for example, on this one, I'm not sure if the drag washers will need to be replaced. This is an older reel. It may have the original leather washers in it. If it does, then it's probably time to replace those. And if it has the EHC 100 washers in there, so long as you can see the cross hatching on that, you do not need to replace those. Just a little dab of grease into the back bearing. I'm going to take the spool now and place that into the assembly, and I'm just going to set that aside. So we've cleaned that assembly. We'll come back and we'll do a little bit more cleaning on that side plate when I have the reel back together. But for now, I'm just going to set that out of the way so that it doesn't interfere with the servicing that we're doing. Next up then, we want to remove the set screw that's holding our piece in here, our handle nut. Now I'm trying to find my wrench. This is a Penn wrench. It'll remove that handle screw. And it's always a good idea, keep the tools near at hand. That way you don't have to put the project down and go find something somewhere. You'll know where it is. In this case, I commingled it with some other wrenches. I normally just leave it on my right-hand side here because I use that wrench quite a bit. Again, back to that little buffing, there was some dried grease on the handle here. And one of the things you're going to notice on the handle here is that it's stamped 24-155. Penn did interchange a lot of their pieces and parts. The 155 is called the Beachmaster reel. It shares a lot of the characteristics with the Surfmaster, but one of the differences is that the Surfmaster only has that single take-apart screw. Okay, we're going to back off the star adjuster by turning it counterclockwise, and we'll do the same thing here. We're going to polish that and just check for any issues that might be happening with the reel. It's a great opportunity to do that. And if you can service this reel, you can service an awful lot of the reels that Penn made in the 60s and the 70s. Their internal design was pretty much common across all of their models. And, well, it's kind of true of a lot of things today, like if you can service a Penn Battle, you can service a Penn Fierce and a Penn Pursuit. And some in that model kind of arrangement, because they share some parts, but more importantly they share some design. I'm removing the bridge screws now, and you're going to notice that there's two different screws. There's a fully threaded screw and a partially threaded screw. Partially threaded screws go up top. The fully threaded screws go on the bottom, with the faceplate top to bottom, the lever up top. When you get that last one out, it may not just come out because the bridge is loose at this point. So you just want to push your bridge through, and I hold my hand here because there is an anti-reverse spring underneath. And if you're not careful, it may just fly away and cause other problems. So this reel was made before 1957, and how do I know that? In 1957, Penn changed the design of their anti-reverse spring. Prior to 1957, Penn used a flat spring. This is your flat anti-reverse dog spring. And in 1957, they changed over to a coil spring. So if you're working on a Penn reel like this one, you will find that flat spring goes away in some models, and that's why there was a design change. They didn't change the model numbers or anything like that, but they did change the spring. Now there are a couple of reels that continue to use that flat spring. The Penn Senator 6.0s and the like, they still have the flat spring as opposed to the coil in many of their models after 1957, so just be aware of that. Well, all I'm seeing here is that it's dry, so probably hasn't been used in a while, and well, the oils and the greases have dried up. I'm going to use a penetrating oil just to clean up some of the grease that's on the inside here. You don't need much because what's dried is pretty much there. I'm getting a little reckless with my pieces and parts there. I should probably put them right into a parts tray, but I'm kind of keeping a good eye on them. Okay, once you've cleaned up that internal part of the case, you want to grab your oiler and a shot of oil underneath. You'll see where that spring joins the eccentric. Just work that back and forth, and that will lubricate the eccentric which comes through the case. You also want to take a minute here to put a little bit of grease onto that back bearing slot, which will be where that spool comes from. And next up then would just be to clean the parts. This is the part called the jack. Has a little dried grease on the back of it. This is the yoke. The jack presses down on the yoke for a free spool release. This is a spacer for the gear. Same idea here. This is going to allow the star adjuster to press down on the drag washers. And this is your pinion gear. Check to make sure that it's clean. It's clean. There's no grease in there. And well, we can go ahead and reassemble that side plate then. First, I want to start with the springs. I put those into a parts tray because I didn't want them to shoot about. There's a hole or a cavity in each side of the side plate. That's where they go, just like that. I'm I'm going to grab the yoke. I'm going to put some grease onto the shoulder on both sides. And please use fishing reel grease when you do this. The pinion gear has a slot. That's where the yoke fits in. And you're going to notice that one side of this is kind of flat with just a center hole. The other side has a slot facing. And that slot, when you go to install this, that slot faces towards you. Center it over the two springs, press down, and then bring your jack over the top, hooking it under the stud on the eccentric, and make sure that the stud in the side plate is aligned there. Last part then is to service the bridge. We're going to remove the main gear and the drag washers and the like inside, and then we're going to try and remove the bridge sleeve. Sometimes this is easy, sometimes not so easy. I use an awl as a punch to pull that through, and once you get it through, you should be able to kind of walk it up, and this is why we do that. So there's grease on that shaft, and you want to get that old grease off. Let's go. Penetrating oil will do that. And then a paper towel will clean it up. This slot here is where that pin runs, so that this can circle without coming off. I'm going to do one more shot here. I'm going to put it inside that gear sleeve. I'm going to grab a cotton swab and run it inside to clean any dirt that may be in there. And there was a little bit of dirt there. Okay, back to our grease. And put some grease onto that center. Bring our spacer or gear sleeve over. And bring this hard washer on next. That goes underneath the main gear. And if you're having trouble, if it didn't go all the way in, it usually means that that little pin didn't set in all the way. So just go ahead and make sure you get that right. Now let's take a look at what kind of washers we have in here. Well, we have the old leather washers, so we're going to want to replace those. And in this case, these washers belong to a common model. It's the Long Beach 60 or 65. So I believe the part number is 6-60 if you're going to use them. Notice when you take the metal washers off that you have two that have rectangular centers to them. Those are called keyed washers. One is going to go high and one is going to go low, just as it's laid out here. This one has two studs on it, one on each side. Those are going to fit into the slots in the main gear. And this one probably was the top one because it's got some plating loss. Alright, we're going to set them aside. I'm just going to turn off the camera for a second. I'm going to go get those washers and we'll be right back. Okay, so I was correct. That part number is 6-60 if you're ordering them for your reel. And they take 3 of these. Now these 3 are Penn's HT100 washer. It's a hybrid carbon tex washer. So it's optional if you want to grease or not grease them. That's at your discretion. I'll show you how to grease them, and then if you choose to run them dry, certainly you can. Alright, I'm just checking the teeth here, making sure that they're uniform, that they're all clean. And I'm going to just put some fresh grease on here, and we can install the main gear and then install the drag washers. The main gear is on. I'm going to use Cal's Universal Drag Grease for this because I have it. If you don't have it, don't worry it. You can use regular fishing reel grease if you decide to grease it. Alright, I use my gloved hand to spread the grease, and the idea is get some grease on there, but make sure you can see the cross hatches. If you've got the grease globbed on, it's too much, just wipe it off with a paper towel. Most of the time, if you have leather washers like the ones that we replaced, you certainly want to grease those because those are permeable and they can dry out. So the whole idea behind greasing is not to give the drags more slip or anything. The idea is to keep them from drying out. Alright, this is your center one. It has 2 studs. And if you look at your main gear, you're going to find the 2 slots where that fits in. One slot is here, and one slot is there. I'm going to take a moment here to try make the last one. Trying to do a couple of things at once here, but we've cleaned that up. It's dry. I can see that crosshatch. I'm going to install that and wipe down the glove here. And the last of our metal washers goes on. Then there's a cap washer. And then there's this spacer that goes on top. Those 3 washers can go off to the side. And we'll show you how to set that flat screw next, or flat spring. Find your screw that has the full threads on it. Bring that in from the top side as you're looking at it here. Bring your bridge assembly in. Press down. And then hold that in place by turning it about 180 degrees. This is your dog for this. These dogs are no longer available. If you find that you have a worn dog, you can get the dog for the Penn 60. It's got an ear on it. You'd have to file off that ear to make this work, but it can be done if you need to. Set it so that it sits like that. It's on top of one of the teeth of this back end here. And we have our flat metal spring. One leg of the spring goes on the top. There's a post here that the other one wraps around. And this, well, it's not that easy to do. Sometimes you're going to find it takes more than one attempt to get it done. In this case, I got lucky. Your spring is riding on top of the dog, behind the post, and laying on the back wall of that side plate. Turn your bridge the rest of the way, and take a couple of turns to set this screw. You don't want to tighten it down all the way because you need a little bit of flex in here to get the other 3 screws started. Find a partially threaded one, come up on the other side, and try and anchor that one to the bridge. Again, don't tighten it all the way down. While you're up there, you can put the fully threaded one on that bottom. And we have one more to go through the spring on this side. And then we can tighten them all down. When I tighten them all down, I reverse the pattern. So I'll tighten this one first, come back to this side. Come over to the bottom on the other side. Come up to the top on this one. Okay, when they're all tight, that one fell out, but that can go back in. And before I put the handle on, I want to use that cleaning pad one more time. There's a little bit of dirt that's laying around in the back here. Might as well get that off. I also have a little bit left over on that, so I'm going to just come over here, buff the side plate as well, and we'll grab a paper towel and mop that up. Okay, handle is going to go on after we install the star adjuster, and we'll give it a test. We'll see how we did. If you have any questions on this reel or any reel, if you maybe you're working on one and something's not going right, maybe you just want to find out more about the reels in general or the uses, just leave them in the comment section. I will try to answer those for you. Okay, we've put the star adjuster on. I'm going to put the handle on next, but before I put the handle screw on, I want to tighten down the star adjuster so that I don't trap it as I put the screw in. Now, if you didn't take that sleeve off the bridge post, you could put a drop of oil in there. In fact, it says so right there. It says oil. Again, they used a lot of parts interchangeably, so on this screw handle it says 2360. And we just saw that we used the drag washers from the Model 60 as well, and this shares the handle screw with that as well. Alright, there's a scallop on that handle screw. Align that scallop with the hole in the handle. I'm going to take the glove off at this point. I think we're done with the grease part of this. That'll enable me to handle that screw a little bit better. And we're just going to tighten that screw up. Last thing I want to do is put a little grease here. That's going to go inside that pinion gear that we cleaned up and greased. And now we just simply merge the two. Make sure when you're putting this on that you're in free spool. Then you can bring it over. We'll tighten this up. If it's not tightening, check to make sure you're aligned with the hole on that inner case. Check your spool. This is too tight. There's no movement side to side in the spool, so use your spool adjuster. Back it off a little bit. You should just hear a little bit of a knock. That's the way that spool adjusts. All right, let's give it a try. Well, we knew it was spinning nice and easy before. Now it's just a delight to spin. Nice and free and easy turning. Let's go into free spool. Make sure that it casts nicely. And again, if you want to cast, you're going to balance your lure weight with the spin and the rotation of the spool, and you can use this spool adjuster to free it up. For example, if I turn it off like that, it's really going to spin, right? And I can back it in to make sure that I have the right tension on the spool for the lure and the line that I'm using. That's it. All right, put it back in the gear. Beautiful reel. I hope you've enjoyed learning about that reel and learning how to service that reel. And if you have one, you now know how to service that, keep that fishing for a long time to come. Before I leave, I want to thank our first responders, our police, fire, safety, rescue, EMTs, everybody involved in keeping us out of harm's way. I want to thank all of our viewers. I want to encourage you to subscribe. I want to wish you a happy holiday season, since that's where we are at this point. And, well, just good luck on the water, and enjoy your friends fishing. This is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Have a great day.